The best thing about sorghum is that if they purchase it and the proceeds are high, that is why we believe it is better to concentrate on that now that the rains are unpredictable.
Producing the maize is a bit capital intensive, if I should say, because the maize crop needs much fertilizer, unlike the sorghum. And then with the maize, sometimes it will be difficult even getting the market. The sorghum, there is just a available market, and then the price is also very good as compared to that of the maize.
I don't have the figure, but we have thousands that are interested in cultivating sorghum in this municipality. And your question, sorghum is actually a drought-resistant variety.
Fertilizer prices have risen. You can't buy one if you don't have money. And if you can't grow maize without fertilizer, if you do, you will get low yields. However, if you grow sorghum on a fertile land, you will get a high yield.
71-year-old Alhaji Idrisu Dabo leaves his home at 8 a.m. on Thursday to go to his 10-acre sorghum farm, which is few meters away. The well-sprouted crops were planted 2 months ago. Alhaji Dabo is waiting for another month until the top half of the head has turned brown and the lower portion is no longer green, which are clear signs that it is time to harvest. Shattering will occur if he waits too long to harvest, and Alhaji Dabo will probably lose more seeds as a result than if he had harvested too early. There are no signs of pest, disease, or nutritional deficiencies. The leaves are healthy and the flowers are blossoming.
I believe I lose more money growing maize than sorghum. That is why we stopped cultivating maize and ventured into sorghum. Nothing indicates that the price of sorghum will fall, and the cost of living continues to rise. That is why we are all now cultivating sorghum, which can withstand bad weather.
He visits the farm every day to keep an eye on any challenges and to act, if necessary, to protect his investment.
And since when we started farming sorghum, no one in Chapori has harvested more sorghum than I have.
In the Upper West region of Ghana's Chapori community, there hasn't been any significant rainfall for some time now, but the 71-year-old farmer is delighted with how well his crops are surviving despite the dry weather.
I use sorghum proceeds to pay my children's school fees and to address other issues.
As more intense droughts coincide with the trends of rising temperatures and decreasing rainfall, the more Alhaji Dabo points to the impacts of climate change. Since 2010, Alhaji Dabo, who only grew enough to feed his family and sold the surplus, has shifted to sorghum, a drought-tolerant crop that does not require expensive inputs such as fertilizer to generate good yield.
Because I keep here fast. Hong Kwaka Temosembin, Chana here fast. Chakamana Hong Kwaka, the letter is Kawakonyabena. So come on, Bakola Yako, what out?
Sorghum grows quickly. If you cultivate maize and there are any other weather delays, you will not get anything. You will not get a good yield if you don't apply fertilizer. Sorghum does not require fertilizer. I didn't apply fertilizer on my farm, and some people were even surprised by how well the farm is doing.
Alhaji Dabo says he plants his own sorghum seeds, which he stores for subsequent seasons, a decision he believes is something good farmers should do.
Farmers shouldn't rely on corporation for their seed needs. Why should they depend on the farm for a living while neglecting to save seeds for later seasons?
Alhaji Dabo's switch to sorghum is part of a wider move by farmers to embrace so-called lost crops from decades past and implement their own locally led adaptations to the unpredictable weather linked to climate change. In the past, Chapori farmers like Alhaji Dabo were able to predict the onset of rains, but that is very difficult now due to shifting weather patterns. Unpredictable rainfall patterns can have a major impact because a large portion of the area's farm output relies on rainfall.
It's not easy to actually get the rains continuously for those periods.
The district, like the rest of northern Ghana, has only one rainy season, which runs from May to September. However, even this pattern is no longer guaranteed as delays or the early cessation of rains have become the norm in recent years.
I.e., the onset of rainfalls, cessation of the rainfalls, the erratic nature of the rains. When it is time for harvesting, that is the time that they are having a lot of rains, which is affecting their harvests. When it is not supposed to be drought, you see prolonged trends of drought. And these are concerns that the farmers have raised. And we understand that as the climate changes, we understand that as vegetation changes, the environmental factors changes, some of these things may happen.
We have an unreliable rainfall pattern. You can't tell when it's raining, when it's not raining. So sometimes during harvest, there's even rain, which sometimes spoil the produce. Then we have torrential rainfalls resulting in erosion. As you all know, last year some roads were cut off. It's just because the rainfalls were too heavy, and so it results in erosion. Then some water bodies our farmers used to rely on to do dry season vegetable production sometimes dry up quickly.
After one of these seasons of only growing maize, he had revenue of about 2,000 cedis but spent at least 1,500 cedis on input for 1 acre of land. As a result, his profit of roughly 4,500 cedis from 10 acres of farmland was not enough to recoup his initial investment plus the cost of imports. Sorghum is more profitable per acre compared to the maize he grew years ago. It also provides a more reliable revenue stream.
Those who buy our produce have been in it for a long time because when we farm, we always get enough money. If they had not been in it, where would they get the money to buy our farm produce?
In 2017, the price earned for 50 kilograms of sorghum was 65 cedis compared to 30 cedis to the same size of maize. But Alhaji Dabo says his profit and loss analysis showed he still came out ahead by growing sorghum, as his losses would have been higher if he had stayed with maize. Since then, the profit margin between these two crops has increased. In 2021, 50 kilograms of sorghum sold at 85 cedis, while 50 kilograms of maize was going at 50 cedis. Sorghum was a game changer for the family. In 2019, it enabled Alhaji Dabo to build a 6-bedroom house in 3 years for only 30,640 cedis.
So, Kamaika, what has some corresponded?
How was I supposed to construct the house? It's as a result of growing sorghum. I was able to accomplish something with money. If I say it does not assist me, I will not be truthful. I will urge farmers like myself to concentrate on growing sorghum.
Thirty-four year-old Abdallah Amadou Tijani is among the farmers in Chapori who switched to sorghum since 2012. He says the crop is profitable and has a market, Mr. Tijani cultivated 10 acres of sorghum and harvested 100 bags in 2021. It inspired him to double his farm size to 20 acres in 2022.
Last year, I was able to do some 10 acres, and I was able to get 100 bucks. And then this year, based on that, I have actually increased. I have about 20 acres this year, and I'm targeting at least, but I'm targeting in between 250 to 300 bucks.
Like Alhaji Dabo, Mr. Tijani says producing maize was capital intensive and access to available markets was challenging.
Producing the maize is a bit capital intensive, if I should say, because the maize crop needs much fertilizer, unlike the sorghum. And then with the maize, sometimes it will be difficult even getting the market. The sorghum, there is just a available market, and then the price is also very good as compared to that of the maize.
Sorghum's resilience to climate-driven weather impacts was also a factor in his decision to switch crops.
Yeah, and then in recent times we are all aware of the climate change. The climate change actually doesn't affect the sorghum crop much as compared to the maize. The rain pattern is also very deceitful this year as compared to maybe previous years. But with this sorghum plant, it doesn't need much rain. Any little water it gets, it takes it up to maybe some 2 weeks or even more before we get another rain again.
Mr. Tijani does not add fertilizer to his sorghum crops, and he says other farmers in his area do the same and still get good yield.
The man didn't apply fertilizer at all. This particular field, we don't apply fertilizer at all, and then this is how the crops are looking.
According to the Jirapa Municipal Department of Agric, there are 99 women among Chapori's 479 farmers. Record shows nearly every resident grew sorghum in 2022. Sorghum was planted on over 1,000 acres of farmland in the community compared to 500 acres of maize and 200 acres of rice.
85% of our population are involved in farming, and roughly half of this 85% are into sorghum production, because a major staple in the Upper West here, used for porridge, used for TZ. That's the major staple here. So most of our farmers are involved in it. Being it, maybe they may be planting their maize, their rice, their groundnut, their soya, but they still put in the sorghum. And because, as I've mentioned, it's becoming a cash crop, they are moving into this sorghum production that much.
45-year-old Sabrokwe Eunice and 47-year-old Mankana Hawawu are two female growers who farm 3 and 5 acres of land respectively. They are also seeing success with sorghum and earning enough profit to support their families.
Sorghum has a greater price. They used to purchase it and pay us later. However, they now pay us immediately after purchasing the sorghum, which makes us delighted. We can conclude that there are a lot of advantages to cultivating sorghum.
So I been maintaining a tassum yagle.
Sorghum is always more profitable than maize. Unlike the maize, we get paid as soon as we sell sorghum.
Both women have been cultivating sorghum for the past 10 years because of its ability to withstand any type of bad weather.
You definitely get good yield if you cultivate sorghum earlier. However, the rain is not always predictable when maize is being grown, which has an impact on its development. Sorghum porridge is delicious. Additionally, we prepare TZ using it after processing. It has a lot of advantages.
So atasum yagle. Tene mngana. Homambo mangala sabadi. Amal koko anyu. Because tene kwora kabane wodo jomo mala koko anyu. Abom namonga sabadi. Komata cha konko boy.
And because there is ready market for sorghum, most farmers in Chapori sell their grains after harvest through the Ghana Commodity Exchange, the open market, and aggregators who supply to industries. Sorghum and other grass family crops were commonly grown in northern Ghana, while maize was originally a major cereal in the south. Maize benefited from donor support for research, crop promotion, and other enhancement activities over traditional cereals such as sorghum and millet. As a result, maize cultivation extended into northern parts of the country, according to Kenneth Opare Obobi, sorghum reader at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research Institute of the Savannah Agricultural Research Institute.
So I wouldn't say farmers have abandoned, but then there's been a decline in terms of the cultivation in area for some time. And this has to do largely with support from donor partners who have promoted maize and some other crops like rice over the years in terms of research, in terms of promotion of these crops, and it has extended the cultivation area of these crops into the traditional sorghum pearl millets cultivation area. That has played a very key role in ensuring that some of the areas that were cultivated to the traditional cereals we have in the northern part of the country to decline.
In recent years, sorghum cultivation has begun to pick up again after a decline in production from 2010 to 2016. The drought nature of sorghum stems from a number of factors, including its root system. Sorghum leaves can move upright and roll when stressed by water. This reduces the amount of leaf surface area exposed to solar radiation, further reducing the rate of moisture loss by the plant.
It's quite resilient when it comes to drought and heat, which is quite predominant in the northern part of the country. It's one of the main crops that can help solve the food security of the country. And for that matter, its cultivation has to be taken very, very seriously. Food security deals more with food diversity. Once we have diversity in food production, then we can be assured that food security is equally assured. So sorghum production is quite similar to maize, just that when it comes to sorghum, the planting distance is relatively smaller or shorter. Usually we have 75 centimeters by 20 or 25 centimeters, depending on what kind of material you are cultivating. If it's an early maturing material, usually it is much smaller in terms of the distance between plants to plants, compared to one that is relatively medium to late maturing. First and foremost, it has been proven as an industrial raw material, specifically for brewing. Over the years, it's been a brewing ingredient for our local pito, and it's moved on to an industrial stage where it's being used in our local products. Aside that, it serves as a local dish for us. It has the potential to also replace maize as an animal feed, poultry feed specifically. Also, it is mainly for poultry feed or animal feed. And we think with the human to feed competition as far as maize is concerned, sorghum can be a better alternative in terms of serving that purpose of animal feed, to reduce the human and animal competition on over-reliance on maize.
For sorghum, it's mainly carbohydrate based, and it gives the energy that is needed. So, and it's a whole grain, not polished like how we polish rice and all the nutrients are gone and just becomes starchy. The whole grain has carbohydrates and fiber that is good for our system, and the glucose or the energy release, it's released slowly, so it's a very good source of carbohydrate and energy for our farmers.
A report by Mohamed Nuruddin.